Well, Herr Botschafter, Frau Geschäftsträger, meine Damen und Herren, lassen Sie mich ein herzliches Willkommen in Trinity College, Oxford verlängern. And for those of you who missed that, a heartfelt welcome to all of you. It's very good to see you all here on this historic occasion, and I hope that it's going to be a very enjoyable one as well, but it means a lot to us. This is 100 years ago, one of the great battles of the First World War took place in a far distant Gallipoli, but the Germans were not present, but the Turks were, and the Turkish general Ataturk, who later became, of course, the head of state of Turkey, said something very moving at the time about those who had died from the Allied side. He said, "Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives are now lying in the soul of a friendly country. There is no difference between those who are on opposite sides and you, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries. Wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom, and having lost their lives have become our sons as well." And I think something of the same could be said here of our Austrian and German students who lost their lives in the Great War. They are our sons as much as their loved ones back in the Austro-Hungarian Empire and in Germany, and we will always think of them in those terms. We're delighted to be unveiling this memorial today. It is, of course, long overdue. Thank you very much.
I'm specifically welcoming you to Trinity's War Memorial Library, which was dedicated in 1928 to the memory of the dead of the Great War. At the time, obviously, the British dead of the Great War, the British Isles and of the Empire, and they are commemorated there, 154 of them. Unsurprisingly, at the time, the enemy dead were not commemorated, and it has taken quite a long time for Trinity to get round to doing that. But we're very pleased to be doing it today. I should just explain the sort of order of events. I'm going to say a little bit of background history. I'm then going to pass to the Austrian ambassador, to the German chargé d'affaires, and finally to Antonia Coleman, who is a former student of this college, but also a great niece of one of the people we're commemorating. And Antonia will do the official unveiling. After the official unveiling, I think we can have a round of applause for the plaque, and then we will actually have a minute's silence. And the minute's silence will be to think of these 5 young men, but also, I think, of their companions, the 154 British dead. Before I do anything else, I do need to say a few words of thanks to the 2 craftsmen, and they are craftsmen, who made this board. Russell Dominion, who so brilliantly emulated the First World War British board, and to Michael Doig, who lettered it, and who was very patient with our demands, and with some of these extraordinarily long German names. But our main thanks is to Angus Fowler, it's there, who did all the detailed research, because we knew the names of our German and Austrian students, but of course we didn't know what happened to them when they left the college. And that took a lot of work. Angus researched all 15 students from the early 20th century. He's actually done interesting biographical work on all of them, and he identified the 5 who had died in war service. Without his work, today couldn't have been possible. The other person I have to thank, she never likes being thanked, is Claire Hopkins. In fact, she's disappeared somewhere. Claire, as most of you know, is the history of the college personified, the author of what is recognised to be the best college history in Oxford, and absolutely wonderful when it comes to our history. This is Claire's brainchild. Claire decided we needed to do this. Claire pressed it forward, and I'm absolutely delighted that we are here, to, as it were, see the end of this successful end of this project. As I said, this library was built as a war memorial at the end of the First War and dedicated in 1928. But, as I said earlier, obviously the enemy dead were not commemorated. But it is high time that we did this. Whatever the rights and wrongs of the outbreak of war, and they will be debated until the end of time, there is absolutely no doubt that the men who fought on both sides were motivated by identical ideals, ideals of patriotism, sense of duty and service. There is no difference in their ideologies, and they all deserve to be commemorated. Today is actually a remarkably appropriate day to be doing this, because exactly 100 years ago, on the 18th of April 1915, the first of these young men was killed. He was killed in the mountains of the Vosges. For all we know, it was a beautiful day like today, and that's when he died. So it has to be admitted there is an element of chance that the days happen to coincide and that a Saturday happens to be the 18th of April, but it's very, very appropriate that that should be the case.
Sir Ivor, Deputy Ambassador von Uslar-Gleichen, Professor Ward Perkins, Miss Coleman, professors, fellows, members and alumni of Trinity College, ladies and gentlemen, as we meet here today, it is both a sad occasion but also one that gives us hope. It is a sad moment because we unveil a plaque commemorating 5 men who lost their young lives in dreadful World War I. And as we do so, we have to imagine how these young men came to one of the most prestigious and beautiful universities in the world to achieve academic excellence with a view to fulfilling their dreams. Instead, they had to experience the horrors of war, sacrificing their lives. Today, we can also feel hope and satisfaction that Europe has been living in peace for the past 70 years, and that the process of European integration has strengthened not only the European continent's stability, but also its resilience against crises. The citizens of Europe, especially the younger generations, are today much closer to each other than ever before, and this togetherness must give us hope for the future. Today's unveiling ceremony symbolizes the long way that Europe has come since the world wars, when thinking of fellow human beings as the enemy poisoned millions of Europeans. As we think of these 5 fallen students today, of which one was from the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and grew up in Vienna, we commemorate all young persons from whatever country who, because of the horrors of war, do not get the chance to live their life and realize their dreams. I therefore wish to thank the President of Trinity College, Sir Ivor Roberts, and the staff of Trinity College for making today's ceremony possible. I thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, let me start by thanking you very much for the opportunity to be here 100 years after the start of the First World War, and 100 years exactly after the death of the first foreign German Trinity College student dying in the First World War. It is indeed a very appropriate moment to commemorate them and actually all the fallen Trinity College students who died in the First World War in this senseless catastrophe of the start of the 20th century. It's an honor for me to be here today on behalf of the Federal Republic of Germany, and the unveiling of this memorial board, which adds 5 more names of Trinity College students to the already too long list of 154 of their fellow students who've died in the First World War, is really a remarkable moment for which I personally thank you very much, and also on behalf of the Federal Republic of Germany. Ambassador Eichtinger said much of what I wanted to say as well. We share those feelings. And I think what I would like to point out is that you are doing this now as Trinity College shows how far we have moved in our reconciliation, in our friendship, in bringing Europe to a point where such senseless wars will not be possible any longer within the European Union's family. I can only say that the political events which made enemies of young people, which were friends only days before, is a show that politics and monarchs of the time were unable to solve conflict and problems in any other way but war, and that we all hope that we have all come to grow, to come of age in as that politics are now have other means of solving conflicts, even though certain current political events again put that assumption into question. But we do hope that in the 21st century we have become able to solve our conflicts in a more humane way, which will allow young people all across Europe to stay friends, to enjoy studying in another country, to enjoy traveling and living in the European Union, and to overcome that way any feeling of hostility, strangeness, and live in friendship and companionship and understanding of each other in the future. Thank you very much. Herzlichen Dank.
We're here today to commemorate 5 members of the college who died in the First World War. One of whom, Heinrich the 41st, known as Nino, was the younger brother of my grandfather, so he would have been my great-uncle. None of the young men who we commemorate today were personally known to any of us, but that doesn't mean that they don't have influence on their extended families, on their friends, and on their places of education. What are the odds of an English great-niece choosing the same college in the same university as her long-dead great-uncle? Maybe coincidence, or maybe something in our shared genetic makeup predisposed us towards Trinity. Now there speaks a determinist, although I don't think Mike Inwood would let me get away with that. I hope that the 5 here enjoyed their time at Trinity and that they had fun, made friends, and possibly even learnt something. I don't know if they all rode. I know Nino wanted to, so I would like to reassure them that things here are good. We won the boat race on Saturday. In fact, we won all 3. There were 2 Trinity men in the blue boat, and the president of OUBC is a Trinity man, so I think this is great. I know a little bit about my great-uncle Nino from family correspondence and archives, so I would like to share just a few biographical details. Nino was killed by a bullet in Romania in 1916. Ironic for a cavalry officer. He was 24 years, 2 months, and 23 days old. He had served for 2 years. Too young? Potential not realised. And yet, today members of his family have converged here from England and from Austria. So his life hasn't been without meaning or without influence, at least for some of us. I do apologise to Trinity for this becoming a bit of a Royce family reunion. I didn't know Heinrich the 41st personally, but I did know his sisters. They were formidable, indomitable, held very decided opinions, but they were kind and loving and very gentle with little children, and they did teach me how to play Halma. Their great hobby as adolescents was to bully their slower brother. So Nino came to Trinity in Trinity term 1913 to recover from taking exams, I have a certain sympathy there, and to start to explore art history, about which he was really passionate. And in one of his letters home, he complains of having a breakfast meeting with the bursar at the unspeakably early hour of 8:15, during which he was put through his first art history exam and was asked to identify the paintings on the walls, which were Rembrandt, Reynolds, and Constable. Luckily for him, he got it right, although even I might do. Nino was a product of his time. He was passionate and loyal. He was deeply devoted to his family, especially his elder brother, and he had strong, deep personal religious faith. He was happy and proud as an officer in the 7th Cuirassier Regiment. His sister, my Tante Dina, who compiled the archive, said that Nino's stay in Oxford was the most beautiful time of his life, which is very important since he wanted to be an art historian. The young men we commemorate here today were young. They studied here. They were influenced by this college. They were dutiful and honourable and defended the causes that they believed in. We cannot know the minds of those who we commemorate, but in July 1915, Nino wrote to his mother before rejoining his regiment, and he said, "It is a great dive from a comfortable, peaceful world to enormous, dirty chaos outside. The amazing thing is that one knows exactly how dirty it is out there and what awaits us, but yet we burn to go out there again. It is not a joy, but an overwhelmingly strong must, one against which one is completely helpless." In some ways, things do not change. I was an undergraduate here during the Falklands War, and every single male student that I knew would have volunteered to fight if they had had to. Yet in some ways, things do change. When I came to Trinity as an undergraduate in 1980, it was only the second year that the college admitted women, and the first year that girls studied PPE. When I was a child, Germans were still regarded as the enemy. Remember the joy of 1966? But now we choose to minimise our differences and to unite in our common goals. Trinity offers a beacon of hope and reconciliation by honouring our fallen, regardless of which side they fought for. Nino's family is rooted in the Christian faith, in the belief in the resurrection and eternal life together. His family motto is, "Ich baue auf Gott." His grandmother, who was a distinguished Lutheran, wrote the following in a well-known hymn, and apologies for my accent. "Hilf du uns durch die Zeiten und mache fest das Herz. Geh selber uns zur Seiten und führ uns heimatwärts. Und esst es ins hienieden, so öde, so allein. O lass in deinem Frieden uns hier schon selig sein." To all those Trinity men who have fallen, may they rest in peace and rise in glory. Thank you.
So I suggest we keep a minute's silence to think of those 5 young men and also their companions.